In a world where secrets are power and unseen forces shape global events, one intelligence agency stands out for its audacity: Israeli Mossad. From covert operations to high-stakes espionage, the Mossad has been at the heart of some of the most pivotal moments in modern history. Welcome to East Wind Channel. Today we are going to dive in the history of this organization. In the aftermath of World War II, the British Mandate of Palestine was fraught with tension between Jewish and Arab populations. The horrors of the Holocaust had underscored the urgent need for a Jewish homeland, leading to increased immigration of Jews to Palestine. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared its independence, and almost immediately neighboring Arab countries launched an invasion, initiating the Arab-Israeli War of 1948. The newly formed Jewish nation faced existential threats from all sides. Intelligence gathering and covert operations became critical for survival. Prior to the establishment of Mossad, various paramilitary organizations of Jews in Palestine like the Haganah, Irgun, and Lehi conducted intelligence and defense activities, but there was no centralized intelligence service. David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, recognized the critical need for a centralized intelligence body, an agency that could operate globally to gather information, conduct covert operations, and ensure the nation's security. In December 1949, Ben-Gurion appointed Reuven Shiloh to establish the Institute for Coordination, the organization that would become Mossad. Mossad's initial objectives were clear yet daunting: unify intelligence activities, facilitate Jewish immigration from hostile regions, and monitor threats from neighboring countries. Resources were scarce, and the agency had to build its network from the ground up. Early agents were badly trained while working undercover in extremely dangerous environments. One of Mossad's first major successful operations was Operation Magic Carpet in 1949, which airlifted around 50,000 Yemeni Jews from Yemen to Israel. Following that, there was Operation Ezra and Nehemiah, when over 100,000 Iraqi Jews were brought to Israel between 1951 and 1952. At the beginning, Mossad was operating with very scarce resources. The organization faced significant challenges, and these limitations contributed to the failure of some of its early missions. But in 1952, Isser Harel was appointed as the new director of Mossad. His appointment marked the beginning of a new era. Under Harel's leadership, Mossad underwent significant restructuring. He emphasized professionalism, rigorous training, and a culture of secrecy. Transformations that not only enhanced the operational capabilities, but also significantly increased the funding of Mossad from Israel's government. Perhaps the most famous operation under Harel's command was the capture of Adolf Eichmann in 1960. Eichmann was a high-ranking SS officer in Nazi Germany and one of the main architects of the Holocaust. Tasked with orchestrating the logistics of mass deportation, he sent millions of Jews to ghettos and extermination camps. After Germany's defeat in 1945, Eichmann disappeared, evading the Nuremberg trials. With the Allied forces closing in, Eichmann used forged papers to flee Europe. He adopted a new identity, eventually making his way to Argentina in 1950 under the alias Ricardo Clement. Argentina at the time was a haven for former Nazis, and Eichmann settled into a new life, believing he was safe from prosecution. The trail went cold until Lothar Hermann, a German Jewish emigrant living in Argentina, suspected that the father of his daughter's friend was none other than Eichmann. The information reached Fritz Bauer, a German prosecutor, who alerted Israeli authorities. Mossad, led by Isser Harel, sprang into action. And so Operation Finale was born, a covert mission to capture Eichmann and bring him to Israel for trial. A team of Mossad agents was assembled, many of whom were personally connected to the Holocaust. These agents weren't just on a mission, they were on a quest for justice. Under the guise of tourists and businessmen, the team began surveillance in Buenos Aires, and they confirmed Eichmann's identity through careful observation. On May 11, 1960, the team set their plan into motion. As Eichmann walked home from the bus, he was kidnapped and taken to a safe house, but the mission was far from over. Getting illegally captured Eichmann out of Argentina posed a significant challenge. The resourceful agents decided to disguise him as a flight attendant who had suffered a head injury. On May 20th, they managed to board on a plane of Israel's airline El Al, successfully passing through airport security. Eichmann was on his way to Israel. His trial began in April 1961 in Jerusalem. Broadcast worldwide, it was one of the first televised trials in history. The trial not only held Eichmann accountable, but also educated the world about the full extent of the Holocaust's atrocities. On December 15, 1961, Eichmann was found guilty on all counts, including crimes against humanity and war crimes, and was sentenced to death. Executed by hanging, it was the only civil execution ever carried out in Israel. The 1960s were a tumultuous time in the Middle East. Egypt, under President Gamal Abdel Nasser, was asserting itself as a leader of the Arab world. Determined to enhance his nation's military capabilities, Nasser initiated a missile development program with the help of German scientists. For Israel, this was an alarming development. The prospect of advanced missiles in the hands of a neighboring adversary posed an existential threat. Egypt recruited former Nazi scientists, including those who had worked on Germany's V-2 rocket program during World War II. These experts were instrumental in advancing Egypt's missile capabilities. Their involvement not only accelerated Egypt's program, but also struck a nerve in Israel, given the painful memories of the Holocaust. Isser Harel was determined to halt Egypt's missile program. He initiated Operation Damocles, a covert campaign to intimidate or eliminate the German scientists working in Egypt. He believed that decisive action was necessary to protect Israel. His plan involved a range of tactics, from psychological warfare to direct threats. Mossad agents sent threatening letters to the scientists and their families, warning them to leave Egypt. Some received parcel bombs disguised as mail packages. These aggressive tactics were designed to instill fear and disrupt the missile program. However, they also raised ethical and legal concerns. The operation did not stay under wraps for long. The attacks led to international outrage, particularly in West Germany, where the public and government were disturbed by the targeting of their citizens abroad. Germany demanded explanations, and the incident strained diplomatic relations between Israel and West Germany, a key financial supporter of Israel at that time. Back in Israel, Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion grew increasingly concerned about the repercussions. He questioned Harel's aggressive approach, fearing it was too reckless and could isolate Israel on the world stage. In March 1963, after a series of heated discussions, Isser Harel resigned. His dismissal marked the end of an era for Mossad. Harel's departure was significant. He had been the architect of Israel's intelligence community, shaping Mossad into a formidable agency. Following his exit, Meir Amit took over as director of Mossad, and the agency shifted its strategies. One of Mossad's most famous spies at that time, and maybe of all time, was Eli Cohen, a man who, under the guise of a wealthy businessman, infiltrated the highest ranks of Syrian society. Eli was born in 1924 in Egypt, in a Jewish Sephardic family. His fluent knowledge of Arabic and the involvement in Zionist activities laid the groundwork for his future in Mossad. In 1957, Cohen immigrated to Israel. Initially working in civilian jobs, he soon caught the attention of Israeli intelligence. After a brief stint with military, Cohen was recruited by Mossad. The agency saw in him the perfect candidate for a high-risk infiltration mission in Syria. To establish his cover, Mossad created the persona of Kamel Amin Thabet, a wealthy Syrian businessman in Argentina. Cohen spent months building his new identity in Buenos Aires, infiltrating the Syrian expat community. His charm and affluence made it easy for him to befriend influential Syrians, paving the way for his move to Damascus. In early 1962, Cohen relocated to Damascus. Using his connections, he quickly ingratiated himself with military officials, politicians, and businessmen, and his home became a hub for elite gatherings. Unbeknownst to his guests, these lavish parties were a goldmine of intelligence. Cohen listened attentively, gathering secrets that he relayed back to Israel. He used covert radio transmissions to send detailed reports to Mossad and provided valuable information on Syrian military plans, fortifications, and infrastructure projects. One of his most significant contributions was intelligence on Syrian Golan Heights defenses, which would prove crucial in future conflicts between Israel and Syria. Cohen's influence was so profound that Syrian officials took him on a guided tour of the Golan Heights. Posing as a gesture of goodwill, he suggested planting eucalyptus trees near bunkers to provide shade for soldiers. These trees later served as markers for the Israeli military, identifying Syrian positions during the Six-Day War in 1967. By 1964, Syrian counterintelligence grew suspicious of information leaks. Increased security measures and sweeps for hidden transmissions began. In January 1965, with the help of Soviet equipment, Syrian authorities traced radio signals back to Cohen's apartment. He was arrested and subjected to intense interrogation and torture. He faced a military trial and was sentenced to death by hanging. Israel still tries to recover his body without any success. The 1960s were a time of intense rivalry between superpowers. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a Cold War, battling for influence around the globe. The Middle East became a critical theater in this struggle. Israel, surrounded by hostile neighbors, faced significant threats from this states equipped with advanced Soviet weaponry. Among these was the MiG-21, a cutting-edge fighter jet that outclassed many Western aircraft of the time. The MiG-21 was the pride of Soviet aviation. Highly maneuverable and reliable, it posed a formidable challenge to Western air forces. Understanding its capabilities was crucial for developing effective countermeasures. In 1965, Mossad devised a bold plan, codenamed Operation Diamond, to acquire a MiG-21 by convincing an enemy pilot to defect with his aircraft. Mossad identified several potential candidates, but one stood out: Captain Munir Redfa, a skilled Iraqi fighter pilot and a member of the Christian Assyrian minority. Redfa felt marginalized in his own country, facing discrimination and pressure because of his religion. Sensing an opportunity, Mossad operatives approached him during a mission in Europe. In exchange for his defection and delivery of the MiG-21, Israel promised Redfa asylum, financial security, and safe passage for his entire family. The plan was set. On August 16, 1966, during a training mission near the Jordanian border, Redfa broke formation and headed towards Israel. Israeli radar picked up the incoming aircraft. Once identified as friendly, they guided Redfa to a safe landing at Hatzor Air Base. Israel didn't keep this prize to itself. The MiG-21 was shared with the United States under a secret agreement. American and Israeli pilots conducted extensive tests, uncovering the jet's strengths and weaknesses. Less than a year later, during the Six-Day War in 1967, Israeli pilots, armed with knowledge of the MiG-21's capabilities, achieved air superiority over their adversaries. On September 5, 1972, during the Munich Summer Olympics, tragedy struck. 8 members of the Palestinian militant group Black September infiltrated the Olympic Village, taking 11 Israeli athletes and coaches hostage. The negotiations were unsuccessful, and a failed rescue attempt led to the deaths of all 11 Israeli hostages, 5 of the terrorists, and a German police officer. The Prime Minister of Israel, Golda Meir, faced immense pressure to respond decisively. The Israeli government convened in secret meetings to consider their options. Out of these discussions emerged a directive to track down and neutralize those responsible for planning and carrying out the Munich attack. Operation Wrath of God was conceived. Mossad assembled a specialized unit comprised of highly skilled operatives. These agents were tasked with identifying and locating members of Black September and affiliated organizations. The mission was not just about retribution, but also about sending a clear message that acts of terror against Israeli citizens would not go unanswered. The operation spanned across multiple countries, including Italy, France, Greece, and Lebanon. Agents employed a range of tactics: surveillance, intercepted communications, and informant networks to track their targets. One of the early successes was the elimination of Wales Whiter in Rome, who was believed to be an important figure in Black September. This marked the beginning of a series of covert actions. Among the most significant targets was Ali Hassan Salameh, known as the Red Prince. He was a high-ranking member of Black September and orchestrated several attacks. After multiple attempts, Salameh was killed in Beirut in 1979 through a carefully planned car bombing. His elimination was considered a major achievement for Mossad. However, the operation was not without flaws. In 1973, agents mistakenly identified and killed Ahmed Bouchiki, an innocent Moroccan waiter, in Norway. The incident led to the arrest of several Mossad agents and caused a diplomatic crisis. It highlighted the risks and moral dilemmas of the covert operations. Operation Wrath of God raised questions about the legality and ethics of Mossad actions. Critics argued that such operations violated international law and sovereignty, while the supporters contended that in the face of terrorism, decisive action was necessary to protect citizens and prevent future attacks. On June 27, 1976, Air France Flight 139 departed from Tel Aviv, Israel, bound for Paris, France, with a stopover in Athens, Greece. The Airbus A300 carried 248 passengers and 12 crew members. Unbeknownst to the passengers and crew, among them were 4 hijackers, 2 Palestinians from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, and 2 Germans from the revolutionary cells. Shortly after takeoff from Athens, the hijackers seized control of the aircraft, brandishing weapons and issuing demands. They redirected the flight first to Benghazi, Libya, for refueling, and then to Entebbe Airport in Uganda. Uganda, under the dictatorship of Idi Amin, was known for its volatile political climate. The hijackers found a willing ally in Amin, who supported their cause. Upon landing in Entebbe, the hijackers released some passengers but kept 106 hostages, primarily Israelis and Jews, separating them from the others. The hijackers demanded the release of 53 pro-Palestinian militants held in Israel and other countries, threatening to kill the hostages if their demands were not met. Negotiations seemed unlikely to secure the hostages' release. As the clock ticked, the Israel Defense Forces began planning a daring rescue mission. Operation Thunderbolt was conceived, a high-risk plan to fly commandos over 2,500 miles into hostile territory, rescue the hostages, and bring them home. The operation required meticulous planning. Intelligence was gathered by Mossad. Entebbe Airport's layout, the number of hijackers, Ugandan military presence, and the hostages' location. On the night of July 3, 1976, 4 transport planes took off from Sharm el-Sheikh in the Sinai Peninsula. Aboard were approximately 100 commandos, led by Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu, brother of Benjamin Netanyahu, the present-day Prime Minister of Israel. At midnight, the Israeli forces landed at Entebbe Airport. They used black Mercedes to approach the terminal, mimicking Idi Amin's motorcade. Despite initial success, they were soon discovered. A fierce firefight started between the commandos, the hijackers, and Ugandan soldiers. The commandos swiftly neutralized the hijackers and secured the hostages. They moved quickly to evacuate everyone onto the waiting aircraft. Amidst the chaos, Lieutenant Colonel Netanyahu was fatally wounded, the only Israeli commando killed during this operation. What is outstanding is that the entire ground operation lasted only 53 minutes. All hijackers present and about 50 Ugandan soldiers were killed. Moreover, 11 Soviet-built MiG fighter planes of the Uganda Army Air Force were destroyed on the ground at Entebbe Airport, securing the safe departure of Israeli aircrafts. The planes safely flew 2,500 miles back to Israel on July 4th, bringing home most of the hostages alive. The 1980s and 1990s were decades of significant geopolitical shifts. The Cold War was winding down, but regional conflicts and the rise of global terrorism presented new challenges. One of Mossad's significant contributions in the early 80s was Operation Opera. Concerned about Iraq's Osirak nuclear reactor, which could potentially produce weapons-grade plutonium, Mossad gathered critical intelligence that facilitated a preemptive strike. On June 7, 1981, Israeli fighter jets destroyed the reactor in a daring air raid. While the operation was primarily military, Mossad's intelligence was crucial for its success. In humanitarian missions like Operation Moses and Operation Solomon, Mossad played a key role in the covert airlift of thousands of Ethiopian Jews to Israel. However, not all missions went as planned. The 80s and 90s saw several failed operations, the most known being the failed Khalid Mashal assassination attempt in 1997. In this high-profile failure, Mossad agents poisoned Hamas leader Khalid Mashal in Jordan, but the operatives were caught, leading to a diplomatic crisis. Israel was compelled to provide the antidote to save Mashal's life and release several prisoners, including Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, the spiritual leader of Hamas. As the world entered the 21st century, the nature of threats evolved. Cybersecurity emerged as a critical front. An Iranian nuclear program became a pressing concern for Israel. A significant shift in Mossad's strategy was the incorporation of cyber warfare. Collaborating with the United States NSA, Mossad is believed to have initiated an operation which included the deployment of the Stuxnet worm in 2010. Stuxnet targeted Iran's nuclear facility, causing substantial damage to centrifuges. This marked one of the first major instances of cyber weapons causing physical destruction, redefining the parameters of modern espionage. Between 2010 and 2012, several Iranian nuclear scientists were assassinated under mysterious circumstances. While no nation officially took responsibility, these acts were widely attributed to Mossad's efforts to stop Iran's nuclear program. On another operation in 2018, Mossad agents infiltrated a warehouse in Tehran, extracting over 100,000 documents related to Iran's nuclear program. The heist provided significant insights into Iran's nuclear activities. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu publicly revealed the findings, impacting international perceptions and influencing policies regarding the Iran nuclear deal. The Mossad has also conducted missions against Iranian proxies in the Middle East, targeting Hamas and Hezbollah. Apart from orchestrating successful assassinations of key figures within these groups, it has accomplished some other remarkable operations. The most recent was in September 2024, when the Mossad sabotaged Hezbollah by secretly rigging with small bombs thousands of pagers and other means of communication delivered to Hezbollah. This led to the deaths of hundreds and injuries to thousands of Hezbollah members as their means of communication exploded in their pockets or in their hands. To conclude this video, I want to say that Mossad, being one of the most secretive intelligence agencies, most of its recent operations and inner workings remain hidden from the public eye, meaning that there's a lot we simply don't know about its true history. We hope this video shed some light on what is known, and if you found this video interesting, please like, share, and subscribe.